Hello and welcome to the AI Summit London. My name's Ruth Duquid and I have the absolute pleasure of being with Sudeshna, the Data AI Product Strategist. For people at home, just give me a little bit of color on your background and your 15 years of experience.
Sure. So I'm Sudeshna. I am a data and AI product strategist, and I have been building data and AI products for the better part of 15 years since it was called data, since it was called data science, before it was called AI. So it was how I landed within financial services. I worked with Deloitte, PwC, strategy, and worked with a bit of private equity as well, and with some financial regulators through my career. And I've been building data and AI products for all of them, really. So yeah, that's my journey.
So with your experience, what drew you into the field of AI, first and foremost, but how has your approach evolved over time?
Sure. So I'm an economist by training, very, very quantitative. I have a finance specialization. So that is what drew me in, because back in the day, finance was the industry that was doing the heavy lifting in data and quant science. Over the years, the data science became AI as we know it gradually. And that is what I think has always interested me, the quant side of things. But I think what has kept me in it is also the human side of the technology, because right now we are not just limited to finance and financial services. We are a lot more open. We are talking about transformation, but then from earlier in the summit today, we talked a lot about technology transformation, but also human transformation. So I think the quant is what brought me in, but actually the human touch is what has kept me excited.
Fantastic. And what use cases within that AI space are you seeing where businesses are achieving significant results?
Yeah, sure. So I'll talk about two specific use cases in my career. One I did for a financial services regulator, where we drove down the customer wait times from years to actually months, maybe weeks. And it is very well to say that, you get this productivity gain as a result of AI, but when that productivity gain actually translates into customer experience and heightened customer satisfaction, you are delivering on the AI promise, really. So that was an excellent use case where you have the productivity gain and you have the customer satisfaction improved with an assisted AI system. So it's reliable by design. There was another piece of work that we started about 8 years ago now, I think, with the BSI, with the ISO. That has now become the ISO 42001. I still remember we used to wake up silly hours in the night trying to get the international committee of expert at some point together on a call to go through international standards. And I feel very grateful looking back that we got to feed into such an important piece of standard making. And I think that is one of the most impactful pieces of work that I've worked through in my career.
Well, I'm so glad you brought up the BSI and the ISO, because as part of the UK's AI expert pool for those both, what are your thoughts on the role in industry standards in ensuring safe, ethical AI deployment?
I think there's a lot of conversations that need to happen still. We are in the very early stages. The 4201, I think, has just emerged out of a long period of work, and the BSI will obviously do a lot of work to certify and align the pieces. Where I think the conversations still need to happen are educating the leaders across other industries on what does AI mean, what is machine learning, where could it go wrong, why do we need to treat AI differently to traditional software, because it is not traditional software, it is anything but. So how do you put the guardrails, I think, is about understanding the philosophy of where AI is different, because it's dependent on the data and the use case that you have at hand. And therefore, every problem you look at is different from the previous problem you looked at. So there's no one size fits all.
And there's a growing conversation around using smaller and sharper models instead of larger scale AI systems. Could you share some color on the advantage of some of the smaller models and where they might be more effective?
Sure. I am definitely more on the side of smaller models, because I believe that sometimes you can get disproportionate ROI by using smaller models, not only because they are smaller and therefore cheaper to run, you don't need as big infrastructure, but also because sometimes they are more explainable. So I'm not even talking about smaller language models. There are essentially some decision tree models that can give extremely good results, be extremely explainable without having the black box, and be served up in regulated industries. That's simply the bigger models struggle with. So yeah, that's where I'd stop with that.
During the panel on GenAI trustworthiness, the importance of data grounding and context was highlighted. How do you think that organizations can ensure that AI outputs remain trustworthy and contextually relevant?
Sure. So one of the things that came out of the panel on grounding was this piece around overtrust and undertrust. One of my panelists mentioned that sometimes AI models pretend to look so good that you end up trusting their instinct on anything really, and then you realize, well, that was not the right thing. Simultaneously, if you don't have trust, you end up losing user experience, you end up losing users on the journey, so your user engagement ends up dropping. I think the way to solve it is almost to bring the users on the journey with you, so that you are not doing that to them, you are doing that with them. Then they know that this is a machine, this is a thinking partner, so they know that it's valuable. Therefore, they know where the model's strengths and weaknesses lie. Therefore, they will know where to trust the model and where to not trust the model, thereby sort of getting around the over and under trust problems.
Which brings me on to my next question, which is, what are the early signs of trust erosion in AI systems, and how can teams proactively address these issues to maintain confidence in the AI solutions?
I think one of the early signals of trust erosion is when you see a drop in user engagement. So if your user engagement starts dropping, you know that the users are not trusting it anymore. That is not great for any product, I would suggest. How do you get around it? Again, I think it is valuable to show people the work. So not only you got the output, but also how you got the output. So these days, when you go and look at the deep research models or the thinking models, even, they show you the thinking. And I think that is powerful. If it were up to me and smaller models, I would go even one layer deeper because I have a smaller data set. But I think it is important to show how you got to the answer along with the answer itself.
Being sat beside yourself as an AI strategist, I have to ask this question, which is, if I could get one piece of advice to businesses looking to adopt AI as a strategic priority, what would it be?
That's a big question. I think one of the things that we used to think about in the RPA days was, where are the repeatable actions? If I could apply the same flavor to AI and say, where are your repeated decisions in the business? Where is it the most volume of decisions you make, but the decisions are of the same kind? And most businesses do a lot of decision making in a lot of volume, especially in the financial services sector. We talk about credit scoring, we talk about claims management, we talk about dispersal of loans. So I think find the areas where you are making repeated decisions and find out what is needed to make those decisions. How are the humans making the decisions? I'm sure there's some sort of a checklist or at least a philosophy that they are applying, and apply the same thing to the AI model. And I think that is where you get disproportionate results.
Interesting. And for yourself going forward, looking on to the next 12 months, what trends are you kind of keeping your eye on the horizon?
I don't know if I'm keeping an eye on that trend, but I hope that this will catch up, is again this piece around trust and explainability, because I believe that AI has come a long way in the last 10 to 12 years to the point that it's almost unrecognizable. And I think that will keep on growing with the Frontier Labs doing a lot of great work and research. Where I think we need to pull people along that curve is, how do you get leaders to understand where the criticalities of these models are, where these models can go rogue, and therefore build governance structures within the organization around that. That is where I think.
And how have you enjoyed the AI Summit London so far? What's your experience been? And what's one of the biggest takeaways you'll be taking away from today?
The AI Summit is great. I have been at the summit for the last 4 or 5 years, something like that. So I saw it grow, and it's really, really a lot to take in over a couple of days. But also, what I love about the AI Summit is something I heard at the headliners yesterday, which is practitioners learning from practitioners. And there are no egos, there are no experts, quote unquote, because you all learn from each other and try to push the frontier together. So great networking. Everyone's so friendly and helpful. So love it.
On that very, very positive note, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for the wonderful insights. Thank you for watching. My name is Rui Chukid, and this has been the AI Summit London.